Hi, I'm Brian Peltonen, CEO and co-founder of Parkosm.ai. Super excited to be here with Umesh Sachdev to talk about all of the developments that you've been working on, particularly with the announcement that's happened in Davos. But why don't you introduce yourself?
Uh, Very nice to be with you, Brian, on this conversation. Umesh Sachdev, founder and CEO of Uniphore. We're a data and AI platform service large enterprises. And the announcement that Brian just mentioned, we announced a strategic collaboration with KPMG just on the first day of Davos.
Yeah, and you've been scaling a lot lately, and we'd love to just hear more about this announcement and partnership and how that's going to help get things to an even larger level.
Well, I'm sure, Brian, like you, we're all seeing an insatiable demand, not just at the World Economic Forum, but even as in day to day from enterprises towards using AI agents, small or large language models to drive a transformation in their business. Unifor today serves over 2,000 customers, and we are seeing that demand all across, which is the underlying cause for our business growing as well. But what shifted from last year to now, when I was here last year, the conversation was about which is the latest LLM you guys are using, what's the use case you guys are going after. So what AI, where can I apply AI, to the conversation this year becoming, I don't want to spend time about with GPU versus CPU. I don't want to spend time on is OpenAI better or Anthropic, because every 6 weeks that answer could be different. So enterprises have shifted their focus towards outcomes and impact that AI is causing in their business. And the combination of what Uniphore does along with ecosystem partners like KPMG coming together, having a conversation with clients about outcome as a service and saying, leave the technical part to people who know it every day, Uniphore, KPMG, and our ecosystem. That's what's driving our growth.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating because one of the things that we're hearing a lot about is a real focus on ROI, where in the past things were much more on exploration and which model. Now we're a couple of years into this transformation, and there's that big focus on ROI, especially for these firms with very sensitive data, sensitive areas. We'd love to just hear about how you're working with those firms.
Yeah. So look, let me pick some examples and make it real.
Yeah.
One of our large clients is a huge insurance firm in the US. They are working with us to bring an entire data model agentic architecture and transform their business. The first area we've gone after with them is claims. It used to take them 27 minutes to process a claim that a consumer like you and I will file for a claim, send some pictures of our vehicle or whatever. Used to take them 27 minutes. 4 people had to look at that application and add their signatures, and that was the procedure. That's down to 3 minutes. And now it's not 4 people, but 3 AI agents, with the final signatory still being a human being who gets the feedback from AI agents and does a yes or no answer. Another example is we work with an oil and gas company, and they wanted to reduce the leakage from contracts and invoices.
Oh, right.
All right. And this is to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year. It's still a rounding error for the oil and gas company. But again, it was physically impossible to look at 35,000 invoices every day and contracts every day with a human army. Like the ROI of that human based servicing model to reduce contract leakage never worked out for them until now we have hundreds of AI agents with some fine-tuned small language models, which are trained to look for specific things in these contracts.
Right.
And these agents are now running through those invoices in real time, flagging issues, which the FP&A team of this oil and gas company, they've already seen in the last 6 months over $350 million of savings that these agents have caught as miscompliance. So examples like these are beginning to emerge and become mainstay.
Right.
And the dominoes are beginning to fall, that even the enterprise who are slightly behind in the curve are hearing about these and pressing the accelerator even more.
Well, it's interesting the use cases that you bring up, because one of the challenges, especially with insurance, but very real with oil and gas as well, data sovereignty. So we know that these agents are powerful. You can do all these things, and the technologists are often excited to apply stuff and get it done, and then someone else in the organization it often gets very concerned about Right, but there are certain things we need to do with the data. There are ways we need to protect it. If we're asked certain things, and I would just love to hear about data sovereignty and how you work to deal with that issue in a multi-agent environment.
That's right. So this is probably one of the top three most important things that comes up in every client interaction that I do these days. And I'll level up for all the reason that you just mentioned. But I'll say one of the themes we're picking up at the World Economic Forum in 2026 is that technology AI is getting intertwined with geopolitics, right? And that's adding, complexity that business people are not used to.
Right.
And so my clients, especially in countries outside of the US, Europe, Asia, it's becoming a real question about data and AI sovereignty. That, because of geopolitics and other factors, customers really want to know that when they're beginning to use a certain technology, a certain platform, a certain model, a certain toolkit, that's going to be immune from tariff action by a country or other actions. And so sovereignty as a topic is truly important. The good news is some of us have been working in the field of sovereignty for a period of time. In the Uniphore platform, our platform is capable of, first of all, running on any of the public clouds, any of the private cloud infrastructure, and on-prem.
Okay.
All right. So we were designed from get-go for this sovereignty, not knowing why this will be great.
Right.
On the data side, our platform takes care of access control. For example, your AI agents could be spanning between finance, HR, and some front office functions. But what you don't want is someone in your call center department being able to access financial information through an AI agent, which otherwise the company doesn't want the call center worker to access. And so through our platform, we take care of access control within the company, creating silos of who gets to access what data, which AI agents gets to access what data. And by the way, the one thing in technology terms that we take care of, our architecture, we call it a zero copy architecture. So the company's data lives where it lives. It can live in a data warehouse like a Databricks, right, or Snowflake or any of those. Our platform doesn't make copies of that data. It uses the data from wherever the source is, starts processing it for fine-tuning models and then building agents, and thereby delivering an entire architecture of sovereignty that our clients are very comfortable moving forward with.
So, question to go, or maybe to go with a more technical question. You had you mentioned that this works on-prem. It works regardless of the cloud infrastructure. One of the challenges with things is making sure that whatever the underlying hardware is, that the software layer is running in an efficient way for that particular tech stack. And I just love to hear how you deal with that very thorny technical problem.
It truly is thorny. And it's thorny because, first of all, let's start with the compute. There are CPUs and generations of CPUs, and now there are GPUs and generation of GPUs. On top of that, there are services, which, let's geek out for a bit. There's, the CUDA and the VLLMs that are the software layer that manage these GPUs. And then there are algorithms for optimization, such as statistical decoding, refrag, and things like that. In the Uniphore platform, we built a context-aware inferencing layer.
Okay.
Here's what that does in layman terms. This layer is looking upwards in the stack and is constantly watching what use case am I serving.
Right.
So if the AI agent is going to be serving a call center type conversation, we know that the latency of this conversation needs to be very low. It needs to be a quick response, which means this might need a high power compute.
Right.
Versus if it's like a financial use case for the CFO's organization, it might be okay to have a 3 or 4 minute response time, and the CFO's organization finds it already beneficial.
Well, especially if it's replacing a process that's days.
So days, So because our inferencing layer is context aware of what the agent is trying to do and how fast it wants to go, in real time, it optimizes itself. It routes itself to the right type of GPU or CPU. It optimizes the kind of services it's using, and thereby never using more than necessary, but delivering the right cost and performance balance to these use cases. And so when our customers go from cool pilots and demos to production scale.
Right.
Because we serve some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies in the world.
Right.
This optimization of cost and performance as a balancing act in production scale becomes truly important.
Right.
And, that's what our inferencing layer is capable of doing.
So maybe to ask another technical question, there has been a back and forth debate about whether organizations should use off-the-shelf large language models, or on the other end of the spectrum, whether they should use highly fine-tuned small language models. And we just love to hear how you think about that ever-evolving, or I shouldn't say ever because it's relatively recent, but that debate.
That debate. So look, at Uniphore, we are big fans of what we call a composable or an open architecture, because we believe at Uniphore that there is no one-size-fits-all for enterprises. It's company by company, department by department, use case by use case. There are some use cases which are better served by a large, off-the-shelf, large language model. But there are a vast majority of the use cases that we get to see are much better served with fine-tuned small language models.
Right.
All right. And just for the audience to understand what's behind these small language models, these small language models start by being a large language model one day.
Yeah.
All right. And in the Uniphore platform, which is the Business AI Cloud, we bring down the size of that large model to a smaller size through speculative decoding and several other techniques that are now very well known. Once the model is of an optimal size, we automatically feed it a perpetual pipeline of data
Right.
on a given domain. As an example, if you're a telecom customer, and billing is a very important agentic use case these days for telecom companies.
Right.
A lot of our clients are doing billing small language model.
Yeah.
So they're training these small language models on all the expertise
Right.
about how do we generate a bill in this telecom company. And that billing SLM is perpetually being fine-tuned with more and more data. But look at what just happened. We are stripping out the parts of the large language model that are not needed for the billing use case. And we are focusing this smaller size model on being an expert on one domain.
Yeah, the analogy that I think of with that is when you're doing your taxes or you're doing something like that, the part of your brain that knows how to play the piano or ride a bicycle isn't really activated in your head. And I think that sometimes small language models get sort of it seems like they're much lesser, but they can focus on those very specific things. And large language models have to do all kinds of things. They have to, write a poem in the style of whatever. And those things can be very distracting. And so it's interesting to hear your.
Well, you're exactly right, Brad. So over 2,000 customers now at Uniphore's platform, we've conclusively proven, first of all, in deep domain expertise areas, these small language models outperform on accuracy, latency, and those type of performance measures any large language model. But not to mention this old-fashioned thing that has now started to come back into conversations about cost.
Right.
Cost of the whole solution, right? The cost per query of a small language model versus a large language model could be a 1:100 times difference.
Yeah.
And at enterprise scale, this makes a huge difference.
Right.
Between, was that a cool POC that will not scale?
Right.
Versus we are scaling this up.
Right. Right. Well, another thing I want to ask about with large language models or small tuned models, there's still an issue with hallucinations and data accuracy. And the clients that you service are very industries that are very focused on accuracy. And I'd just love to hear kind of how you build an environment knowing those issues can't exist with underlying models.
Yeah. So one of the biggest unlocks in the last few months that we've seen giving our customers confidence to scaling this company-wide has been the shift of, up until last year, customers were thinking, how do I change my process, my org design to fit how AI agents behave? Because AI agents, by definition, reason.
Right.
So our customers were anxious to say, asking us constantly, Umesh, how do I change my process? How do I change my org design?
Right.
The unlock has been, our customers have begun to realize that it's possible now to make these AI agents work within the current business process which even if it's a regulated industry, it requires predictability of action all the time. And there are several innovations that have happened in late 25 coming into this year, which now make these AI agents deterministic.
Right.
All right. So here are a few of them, and let's enumerate.
Yeah.
We spoke about small language model, which is focused on a domain versus large language model.
Yeah.
That's step one, that you're making a model much more of an expert on one domain.
Right.
And that reduces the chance of hallucination. Doesn't take it completely off the table, but does that. Then there are now very mature guardrail systems that work right before the SLM and right after the SLM to constantly check, is the SLM doing or answering something that's outside of the guardrails of the company?
Right.
And then finally at the agentic layer, to make sure the agent doesn't reason and does the same task in several different ways every day.
Right.
Companies have come to realize that it's not wise to give an agent a prompt of a 30-page policy document. Because what you're doing then is giving it 30 pages of reasons to do different things.
Right.
So the architecture being, give the agent smaller tasks and put these small task agents into a workflow.
Right.
Which mimics your current business process. So combination of those deterministic workflows, guardrails, small language models, it's all making these AI agents behave more predictably. That's giving confidence to our customer to start scaling it up.
Right. And one last question, as I walk the promenade here in Davos, AI is everywhere, and it's very clear that that business leaders, government leaders, influencers of all different types, there's a real thirst for learning more about AI and a real passion for it. That there's a part of me that as I walk around, we're like, where were all of you when I was in high school? But my question is, what kind of one takeaway do you have for these leaders who have real questions about AI, and what should their takeaway be this year?
So Brian, I'm already concluding leaving this year's World Economic Forum as I plan my business for the rest of the year. I have no doubt in my head that AI is going to be a big engine of growth for the entire enterprise arena. And here's why. Because some of the success stories that are beginning to pick up here in World Economic Forum, they will become viral.
Yeah.
And they'll start to put pressure on competitors of those companies and other peer industries to say, why aren't we replicating the success that one is having? We're going to start to hear in the earnings calls of some of the biggest publicly traded companies, examples of this growth being driven by AI.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we are seeing this cycle shift from what was novelty last year, like I said, which LLM, which GPU, to now back to basics. The switching cost between technology and LLMs and GPUs is trending to zero. So it almost doesn't matter which LLM and which GPU we use today, because tomorrow it could be something else. But let's focus on the transformation agenda, what impact AI is going to drive. And because that's become the vocabulary of CEOs, we're going to start to see a big proliferation and lots of proof points in 2026.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much, and best of luck. Exciting news that you announced here, and we're excited to see what's in the year ahead.
Yeah,
thank
great
you very
to chat
much.
with you, Brian.
Cheers. Thank you.